All right, we are going to get started now with our Tuesday night Knox Makers show and share. So for those of you who are new and have never been to a show and share before, this is just an opportunity for people to show off what they're working on, what they finished, what they failed at, and what they're stuck on. We welcome projects of all types, sizes, and shapes. So it's just a chance for us to see what everybody's working on and see if we can help if we can. We have just a few people on the list tonight, so we'll get started with Chris, who is going to show a 3D scan and print.
Alrighty, been trying to accomplish this for a little while, and finally got sufficient hardware to actually do it. Basically, I was wanting to scan a person and then print the person. And the device using to do that is this scanner here. This is a Maraca scanner from a company called RevoPoint. They make a line of 3D scanners. Some of them you hook your phone into, and then it's got the various sensors and whatnot. And then this is actually a standalone unit, so they basically put their own phone in it. You know, it runs Android and whatnot. But this uses infrared light to scan somebody, so you're not seeing flashes, you're not seeing anything along those lines. But you scan a person, and they also send you a nice turntable, so you can have the person stand on the turntable, and then basically you're sitting there.
Make sure you're behind the microphone.
I'm sorry?
Make sure you're behind the microphone.
Oh, yes, sorry. Oh yeah, even I can hear that. Okay, sorry.
You can even pull it down.
Alrighty.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry about that. Yes, so basically wanting to scan a person and then print a person. So the hardware used to do that is this. Uses infrared in combination with a web camera to generate a point cloud, which is basically a bunch of dots in space that have a color value associated with them. Then in software you can take that point cloud, fuse it, mesh it, and basically you start with just a bunch of dots in space, and then you make a solid object, and then you can make that object a single solid object, and then you're off to the races with 3D printing. So anyway, so was able to successfully scan my wife Baylor, who's actually in the back, and basically use this and then just scan, hold and scan as she was turning on the turntable, generate the file in software, send that off to the 3D printer, and give the new 3D printer a run for its money. So print basically a 12-inch replica. So let me pass this around.
Can you put it up to the document camera so that way they can see it better on the...
Yes. So fairly generic PLA print. This was actually low resolution. It's I think 0.16 millimeter layer lines. So I didn't do it 0.1. Just wanted to get a.
Zoom out just a little bit.
Not entirely sure how to do that.
On the button.
Bottom right, T and W, I'm assuming?
Yep.
There we go.
There we go. Nice.
Thank you much. So basically, 0.16 millimeter layer line, so it can go down to I think to 0.1, but it's a little faster to print. You can see the detail here is retained. So detail in the face, detail in the hair. Given that it's infrared, the scanner does have issues with darker colors, and then the color black. Anything that's going to wash out or absorb in the infrared spectrum. So there's a little bit of the scan actually missing on the head, but you can't actually tell even looking at the print, knowing to look for it. But yeah, so it maintained very good detail for basically the entirety of the print, to include folds in fabric. I mean, you can see that, you know, throughout the model. Did not quite get all the feet scanned, so it still actually has the supports. So that's kind of what's going on with the bottom. So it's still got the supports, but that allows it to stand straight on a flat surface and go from there. But I figure take that, pass it around, and go from there.
Oh, I'm gonna check to see if you can see a ring on her finger. Is it that detailed? Can you show on the camera? I mean, it looks like it's detailed enough to show
Yeah.
any jewelry.
Let's see if I can.
Wow.
See if it'll.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a little hard to see on the. I mean, there's a. Basically, it's got her hand there, but you can see there's actually a bump.
Here's the ring.
So yeah, and then she was wearing a Seahawks bit. You can actually see the hawk embedded on the. There we go. But anyway, yes.
How long did she have to stand there for you to do a full body scan?
5-10 minutes, maybe.
About 5-ish minutes.
Yeah, the first time doing it took a bit longer. Figure out, it's like, all right, how am I doing this? What's the menu system? Mainly, it's you can do it in more than one pass. So basically, you can get 90 to 95% of it very quickly, and then go, oh, hey, I'm missing a little bit of her left elbow. Then go back and then take a single frame of data to basically fill in that gap. It's just a matter of it's like how much of a gap do you want to get, and then the software you can fill in missing pieces of it'll patch over holes in the model, and that's all controlled in software.
How much infill did you use?
Sorry?
How much infill?
As far as infill goes, I think it's 2 walls or
The percentage of infill that you
yes, 15% infill on that print, and then two layer lines for the wall. Yeah, I think it was about 300 grams of filament, if memory serves. I'd have to look at so basically took the file, just switched slicers. Switched from Cura to Orca. So Orca is used for some of the new Core XY printers, and then Cura's, of course, been around forever.
say how long that took?
16 hours. So yeah, it's basically yeah. I mean, it's an overnight print, but for the amount of detail, I was pretty pleased. So, any other questions? Thank you much.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much. Coming up next on our list is Sue, who's going to show a cross stitch.
Well, as you know, I always have to have something to do in the evening to keep my hands busy. So I decided I would try for this. Doesn't look too hard, but a little more advanced than the ones I showed earlier. What I found I really liked is in the fiber arts area, we have some clear sticky tape, if you will. And so with cross stitch, you have a plain piece of fabric, you find the center, and then you can use these to mark the row or the column. And they're sticky, so you can keep moving them, and they help tremendously in keeping track of where I was at. I was getting close to the end. I was loading up some of the needles with 2 strands, some of them with 4 strands. One suggestion was to have the knot at the needle, but I found sometimes I had to pull, and eventually the thread broke because it was pulling too much. And others suggested just doing it the old-fashioned way where you pull on it and, oh, I've unthreaded the needle yet again. Okay, let's go. Keep going at it. I did get it done. Towards the end, as I said, I was playing with different needles, had several. You will notice in this kit, there's supposed to be 6 needles, and you will see that there are only 5 in there. Somewhere in our living room, I know we'll find it someday, is a needle. Yeah. They're very small. They're just really small. Yeah. We did take the a magnet on a stick and comb the area, and in that process, I found a very large yellow-headed pin I had lost previously and forgotten about. But hopefully it won't be that one that finds them. So I ended up finishing it. Ta-da! Yeah. So at first I had a hard time getting the hoop. I wasn't getting enough space there, but I eventually got it. It took me about 3 tries, but I got it. Any questions?
How long?
Oh, several evenings. Ah. Well, let's see. That kind of works. All right. Thank you so much.
All right. And last on my list tonight is Daryl, who's going to show some forks.
Shocked me. Hey. So my extended family does for the holidays, white elephant type gift exchange. Like, it's good stuff, so you get stuff you would want to get, to own. And you swap, or you steal somebody's, or you keep the one you chose, or whatever. Last year I made like a snail out of metal and a railroad spike knife, and those were in the running. This year my wife asked me to make some forks, little forks, because she got a stovetop, or rather a countertop, like fire pit thing, like a little solo stove for countertop, just for hand warming. She wanted to make a marshmallow roasting kit, basically, so I was charged with making forks. And they're hard. I delayed the project because I was working on a stained glass for my daughter that I showed a few weeks ago, and finally got down to it and learned that I'm really bad at splitting metal with it. Like this, you have to split a piece of metal to make the tines on these are 2-tined forks for like marshmallows, and so I had a heck of a time getting that right. So I'll show you just a few pictures of what that process was like. Let's see, I know where this is. Here it is. All right. So first I heat the metal. I'm using square stock here. Some people use rectangular stock, slightly flat bar. I had this around, so I've flattened the tip out. Just got it hot. Here I've taken a chisel and I've begun to try to split, that flattened bit, so that I can peel those apart, right, and make it into the tines, which I'll then round and shape. You can already see. I don't know how evident it is in the photo, but my chisel work isn't the most tidy. Files help with that once you get this actually split. But here is, I've actually done a split. It's not terrible. It's not great. And that's the next step. Here, I did this kind of badly. I really should have splayed these out farther than they are. But you go from, these are rectangular when you start. So you go down to square-ish, and then you go to round, and then you taper them down and, try to get those points on it. Then you got to bend them back into the shape you want. And, from where you've split, there's a little divot, kind of right in the for lack of a better word, the crotch between those 2 tines, and that's kind of a pain to deal with. So here are a bunch I made. None of these made the cut. Some of them. Let's see. Just go in a little bit. They're just these 2 big ones. I wanted to try bigger stock. That was way too big. I couldn't use it, so I abandoned those. I made several where I got it right to the final bit. They looked great. I did one more little tweak on the fork on a tine to get it in place, but it was cold and it just snapped off. And that broke my heart a couple times because I put a lot of work into them. Here at one point, there's banana for size or for scale. The focus isn't great on those. These were too small. I got the smaller one there. I showed to my wife and I was like, "Here's a prototype. Do you like it?" Yes, make it bigger. Okay. And more bad ones. Here's one that's, I think it made the final cut. You know, the angle's not great, but you know, put a little twist in it. You can't see it here. You'll see it. Well, you see it on the ones below. Put a little curly Q on the end for hanging it or whatever. And I wanted just a kind of a nice gentle curve and an in curve and an out curve on the tines just for the aesthetics. Here you can see like they're terrible. So there's, you know, there are folds in the metal that I didn't manage to work out on all of them. The shape isn't perfect. There's some flat spots. So, you know, some of them look a little better than this, but that's the final set. They're fairly uniform and, you know, they look decent enough. My wife was happy with them. There's one kind of shown more, you know, more close. And there's the handful. And that's what I did. And it was sought after. People liked it. My wife liked it. She was satisfied. And I may never make a fork again. any questions? Yeah, Rob?
I was going to ask you, you talked about the white elephant. Did you have to give them away then?
Yeah.
So you don't have them anymore?
No. Well, no, I got a whole pile of rejects. I got a bucket full of rejects. Tracy?
Is there a point at which, I don't work with metal, is there a point at which it becomes too brittle to work with?
Yeah.
And then just breaks, and how do you know when that is?
Well, if you break it off, you've done it. Typically, so just as a rule, as a guideline, if you're working like really thin metal, right, so the tines get really small, those are going to cool off super fast, right? And so, you know, it's real easy to get just past that point at which they're too brittle because they cool so fast. So that's what happened. I was like, just one more tweak. Dink. Yeah.
Less than nice ones.
Yeah. Was there another question?
Are they very heavy?
I mean, heavy's relative. They're heavier than like coat hanger ones, you know, but they're not super heavy. They're, you know, they start as an 11-inch piece of quarter-inch square stock, so not real heavy.
Bending the tines with pliers or like on the horn and
A little both. You know, I'll start with, you know, some blows. You get it like this, right? And then it's actually mostly pliers, but I might go to the horn to shape just a little bit and bow those out, and then pliers again to turn the other corner, the other bits out. So that's when, you know, again, you're working this, you're trying to get it done in one heat, and you just go a little too far and it snaps off. So. Cool. Thanks.
All right, that was the last name I had on my list. Did anybody want to have something to show? Okay, great, yeah.
Hey y'all, it's been a little while. I'm Narita. I had a fiber arts activity that I did. I had my very first attempt at printing out a pattern at home. I like the tape up here covering all the non-applicable buttons. So I printed out this pattern and it was really cool. There were several that I saw that when you print it out, you have to cut along the lines on every single sheet of paper. And I was like, I don't want to do that. But this particular pattern maker, they had it, you just line up the dots on each page. So that was really awesome. I had a wedding to attend right after Christmas for a friend, and my mother-in-law gifted me this fabric. It's, it has like velvet flowers on it, and the bottom has a more distinct pattern. And I had to find a pattern that would work with the limited yardage she gave me, but this was the bottom of the fabric. So I was like, oh, that'll be a nice hem. I ended up making, I took my sewing machine with us on a road trip, and I sewed the whole dress when I was there. I cut out the pattern, or I printed it out, pieced it together, got everything cut out before leaving, and then I just packed it with me. So I didn't have any extra fabric, so any mistakes, it was like you just gotta, own it and hope that you can make it work. So this is what I ended up making. I just wanted a nice overlay that I could use for several outfits. So it was nice, but the fabric is so delicate, and with the pattern, I was really restricted in how I could lay out the pattern on the fabric. So I ended up using that bold print area for the top of the sleeve, and then the flounce is just the other part. And that way I could still have the accent of that bold pattern in a couple spots. But it was a little tricky, and I had to do French seams on everything, and that just took a while. But thankfully, several months ago, I had some help here getting my sewing machine, cleaned up and oiled and up and running, and, a little bit of help from Sue and some other folks. Brian was a huge help. So just, it's so nice to be back up and running and able to take these projects with me and knock some things out, so. Yeah. Okay, so let me see if I can. This fabric really tends to fray a lot on the edges. And so a French seam, you sew the two pieces together one way, and after it's sewed, you turn it all around, and the part that's already sewn and pinched together, you sew it again, and that gives you a really clean line, and it keeps all those fraying edges from getting like strings all on the inside and tickling you, and just, it really helps to keep the garment holding together longer too. It takes longer because you're basically sewing all of the hems twice. You sew it wrong sides together first, and then you flip it to right sides together. So then on the inside, this ends up being a little bit more clean, and so you're not having those fraying pieces. Was your question the same?
Yeah.
Any others? I'm surprised I didn't get asked how long it took. Taping all the pattern pieces together was probably about 2 hours, and then cutting it all out. But cutting out any pattern is going to take a while, especially for like a longer full-size garment. And then pinning it to the fabric, cutting that out was about an hour or so. It wasn't too bad. And then sewing it together, I started around 9 o'clock the day after Christmas, and finished it around 6 in the morning. Got it ironed, pressed, took a power nap for a couple hours, and went and enjoyed the wedding. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other projects that people wanted to show that didn't get on the list? All right. Well, there are lots of things going on at Knox Makers. There are lots of classes coming up, almost all of which are sold out, so sorry. We do have a couple that still have tickets available or were just posted. There's a Woodworking 202 class on the 17th. That's at advanced turning. There are a couple of prerequisites for that, though, so do check before you jump on any tickets for that. And then there's also an electronics art sculpturing class. So if you are wanting to learn how to solder maybe, or just want to kind of do something fun, it's going to be sort of a taking components from the hack rack or just off electronics pieces and then creating little sculptures and soldering them together on these special platforms that have been worked up that have got little lights and stuff. So it's going to be really neat, and that's going to be on the 18th at 6:30. So there's plenty of tickets left for that. Next week, next Tuesday, we're going to have a new members onboarding, and that will take place after show and share. So if you are a prospective member or a current trial member who has not attended a new member onboarding, it is required before you can become a full member. Then, in 2 weeks, 2 Tuesdays from today, will be our annual Knox Makers members meeting. It is the one Tuesday of the year that we are not open to the public, and it's where we kind of go over sort of state of the union of the makerspace, and we elect officers technically. If you are a member now, you should have received a ballot today. So voting will be open today through right up until the meeting begins, basically. So you have a little bit of time. It's basically just electing our board officers for the coming year. And yeah, so we're just gonna hang out beforehand. We'll have a little cookout. So yeah, like I said, it's just for members only. So if you got a friend who's interested, be like, just come back in a few weeks after that. But yeah, that's gonna be a fun time, and it's an important thing we do every year. So we hope to see as many of you out here as we can. With that, do we need to do air filters this week? Always, yeah. So can we get 2 volunteers to help replace the air filters? Daryl? Amy? All right, great. Anything else that you could think of? If you see a full trash can, empty it. You know, be a good volunteer, good member. But other than that, that's.
If they're new, see if
Oh yeah, if you are new and need a tour, you can see a board member, someone with a red badge, and they will, or me, I guess. And you can get a tour and learn more about Knox Makers. But with that.
I'm giving keys.
And Sue is giving keys if you need a key. So if you are a trial member whose trial is up, see Sue to get your key. And with that all? With that, we are concluding tonight's program. Thank you all for coming. Get home safe.